Well, hello everybody. My name is Vanessa. I want to welcome you to Rekla Learning Studios. It is Wednesday, so we are doing our micro training session today, and our topic for today is the portfolio. So specifically, the student portfolio that most schools are wanting to produce to show learning for their students. And I do see oftentimes in schools with teachers and administration a bit of confusion, a little bit of stress about the portfolios, how to put them together, what's included. I get lots of questions about it. So I thought I would just, since it's the beginning of the term for most everybody, I thought I would just talk a little bit about portfolios and how to design them and use them. My Sunday deep dive was also about portfolios. Yesterday's infographic that I posted was about portfolios. So if you're curious and want more information, you can check out my other resources on social media or in YouTube. So this is our gentle way to begin with portfolios. So if you haven't started already, that's okay. This isn't a big job. It's not a huge project that you have to undertake. We're going to start small. So most portfolios don't feel overwhelming because they're too complex. They feel overwhelming because teachers, administration try to start with organization instead of thinking. So they focus on the folders, they focus on the presentation, they focus on the labels, the sections, all those things. And those kinds of things are the things that we want to evolve into as the portfolio grows with the student. So, and it all happens, this organization, it's okay, let's get the portfolio sorted before the semester starts, but it doesn't really work that way, not an effective one anyway. So today I want to share a gentler way to begin student portfolios, one that focuses on reflection first. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what that kind of reflection looks like so that there is meaningful artifacts that will grow naturally and be able to be put in the portfolio. So oftentimes, like I said on Sunday, teachers want to put worksheets and writings and things in the portfolio and the final product, right? And that's not what the portfolio is for. The portfolio is for showing growth and learning across the time period that you're using the portfolio. So in Finnish-inspired classrooms, portfolios are not built all at once. They grow slowly through listening, through reflection, and small moments of insight. The goal isn't to collect everything for the student as the teacher. The goal is to notice how learning is developing. So we want to focus on the portfolio belonging to the student, not the teacher, where students are the ones who notice their learning, they reflect on it, and decide what belongs in their portfolio. All right, so the teacher's role is to design the reflection moments in the classroom to set up the time for that, but their job isn't to decide what goes in, to do all the gathering, to put it all in the folder. That's the job of the student. And why do we do that? Because we want the students to take ownership of their portfolio. The portfolio template is student owned, right? It helps the students to reflect on their learning in real time. It helps them to decide what evidence represents their thinking, and it gives them responsibility for building their own portfolio over time so that they can talk about it, share it with their parents, their grandparents, and actually be able to explain what is in their portfolio. So this means that portfolios don't all look identical for the students in your classroom, and that's actually a good thing, right? We want them to be unique to each student because each portfolio tells the story that student is learning, and of course, every student learns differently. All right, so that's the section about what is it. Let's look at what students do. So students begin with a baseline reflection before learning starts. And I want to clarify, this is not a pre-test we're looking for. This is a thinking snapshot students create for themselves. So they might place themselves on a confidence line, right? Before you start a lesson, you might ask the students about the topic that you're looking at for the day or for that moment, and ask them to reflect. What is it that they know about this topic, and put it on potentially a reflection line, or not a reflection, sorry, a confidence line. You can also use a name and expectation for this lesson idea, so they can reflect on what they expect to learn from this topic. They can share a question they're carrying into the learning. So based on this particular science lesson, what is one question you're curious about? All right. And they can write that down. And then throughout the lesson, they can add notes, they can draw pictures, they can give feedback orally so that it's recorded. Lots of different ways to reflect and share. And then later, during or after the lesson, the students can pause again to reflect and choose the answer to that question, or whether their point on the confident line moved in a direction, towards understanding or away from it. Maybe it was a complex lesson in math and they just couldn't follow it. Then their confidence might be less than when they started. Maybe they think, oh, I know a lot about this. And then when they get to it and they start practicing it, they realize it's much harder than they thought. So lots of different ways for students to do this, to gain a baseline before the lesson. Write a short reflection, sketch an idea, annotate their work, record a quick voice explanation. So students decide what represents their thinking and add it to the portfolio. The teacher doesn't do this part. All right, the student is the one doing it. You can do this also during the learning to notice the changes in understanding, not just always at the end. I wanted to clarify that. You can do this midway, in the middle, 3/4, whatever. Pause and reflect. And then capturing the thinking, right? There's a lot of different ways to do that, with writing, with drawing, annotations, voice notes that we talked about already. Okay, so what does the teacher look for? Teachers aren't sorting the artifacts and assembling the portfolios, right? What teachers are doing is listening for shifts in understanding, changes in confidence, emerging strategies that they've discovered, or where support or extension is needed. So the evidence helps teachers understand learning while students remain in charge of their portfolio. So my learning starting point, here you can see in our graphic, right now, I feel confident about blah, blah, blah. Something I want to get better at in this term, or in this subject, or in social emotional learning. You can adapt this question to a lot of different areas. When learning feels challenging, so this is a great question for teachers to ask students, because they begin to find out exactly where the students are at, and then they can adapt the learning stations or the lessons to connect with the student in a more relevant way. So planning for tomorrow. This is a topic that I've talked about before. Base tomorrow's steps on today's entries, right? Using a reflection wall is a really great way to do this. Give everybody a sticky note, have them write down their reflections. They put them up on the wall, whether it's at the beginning of the lesson, and then again at the end of the lesson, they can get an additional sticky note and add to it and see how they've changed. And then as a teacher, you can look over that reflection wall and you can see the patterns. You can see where the students are struggling so that you can adapt tomorrow's lesson. This helps teachers to adjust pacing, revisit an idea maybe that there was a common challenge in, design a warm-up for the next day, just as a short review, maybe to touch a small area where there's confusion, but doesn't need a 20 or 30-minute review. And it helps students to notice their growth that they might not yet see. So the next lesson grows from the student's thinking, not from a pacing guide or checklist in the textbook. Permission moment. So this is what we're talking about when we don't have to build student portfolios for the students. I want to encourage you as teachers, don't take on this responsibility. I know it's a big requirement, and I know it might feel a little bit like it's a reflection on you as a teacher, but it's a reflection on the student. So your role is to just create those opportunities and reflection moments, and the students are the ones that take the ownership of that. And that shift alone makes portfolios calmer, lighter, and more meaningful. So if you'd like student-friendly reflection templates to support this process, they're included in our portfolio starter pack that you will find in the RECLA Learning Store. They're designed to help students take ownership without adding to your workload. So it will have a variety of reflection activities and ideas for you so that you can implement these moments in your school day. So when reflection comes first, just in closing, and students take ownership, that's a priority in this process, the right artifacts will naturally follow. And each portfolio will be unique for your students individually. Well, that's all I have for today's micro training session on portfolio reflection. Thanks for listening. Enjoy it. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can be notified of our next micro training video. Thanks again. Have a great week.